Most people believe that intimacy is just a physical act, momentary encounter without great consequences beyond pleasure. But what if I told you that every intimate exchange can completely change your energy, your emotion, and even how you see life? Yes, your energy will never be the same after intimacy, and the worst. Few realize this until they feel the effects on the skin itself. Do you know that inexplicable nostalgia after a date? That emotional weight that arises for no apparent reason? Or even the difficulty in overcoming certain relationships, even when reason already said it was time to move on? None of this is by chance. There is a deep energy exchange happening, an invisible pact that can influence your thoughts, your emotions, and even your ability to connect with others in the future. But this does not mean that pleasure should be avoided or that intimacy is something dangerous. The question is not if you get involved, but how do you do it? Have you ever wondered to think about who you are sharing your energy? Have you already reflected on the impact of unconscious relationships on your emotional balance? Most do not ask this question and end up absorbing trauma, carrying unwanted spiritual bonds and feeling fragmented without even knowing why. What you will find out now can completely change your way of seeing intimacy and give you tools to protect yourself from these hidden consequences. But first, I need to ask you a question. You really have control over the energy you share? Or is it being carried away without realizing it? Intimacy goes far beyond physical contact. It is a fusion of energies, an exchange that leaves invisible marks on the soul. When two people connect at this level, they are not just sharing a moment, but intertwining their stories, their pains, their fears, and their hopes. What seems to be just a passing encounter can carry a deep and silent impact, shaping emotions and influencing the perception of oneself. And the most curious? Often, the person does not even realize that he is carrying something that is not hers. Have you noticed how, after certain meetings, some people feel light and invigorated, while others carry a difficult emotional weight to explain? This is because, in addition to momentary pleasure, there is an energy exchange that can leave subtle but persistent tracks. The feeling of inexplicable emptiness after an intense night may be precisely the consequence of this exchange, where fragments of the other person remain impregnated in their own energy. It's like borrowing a book full of annotations from someone. The story may be similar, but interferences completely change reading. And that's where the danger of unconsciousness lives. Often people come into intimate relationships without realizing the invisible pact they are affirming. The question is not only with those who lie down, but with whom it allows to connect to such a deep level. Because, we like it or not, each energy exchange directly influences the emotional balance. And when this exchange happens without self-awareness, there is room for the absorption of alien trauma, the feeling of emotional confusion, and even to an inexplicable nostalgia for something that rationally did not make such a sense. So, before seeing intimacy only as a physical act, it is worth reflecting on the real impact of the connections we create. The body may forget, but the energy always remembers. And if each exchange carries a brand, it wouldn't be smart to choose more carefully who we let in our energy field. But what happens exactly in this exchange of energies? Well, that's where the subject gets even deeper. Intimacy is not limited to a meeting between bodies. It is a real energy exchange, a fusion that can reverberate for days, months, or even years. When two people get involved, their vibrations mingle, creating invisible ties that directly influence their emotional balance. And here is the detail that many ignore: this exchange does not distinguish positive energy from negative. If the other person carries unresolved trauma, deep fears, or dense vibration, part of it can be unconsciously absorbed. Have you noticed how, after certain meetings, some people feel drained while others come out energized? This is because the changed energy does not disappear the moment when physical contact ends. Imagine that each person carries a vibrational field, like a perfume that is not seen, but that impregnates in the environment. Depending on who you share intimacy, you can get out of experience with a smooth and invigorating fragrance or carrying a difficult emotional weight to explain. The danger lives in the lack of conscience about this process. When someone gets involved intimately without realizing this dynamic, they can end up carrying feelings that are not yours, confused thoughts and even inexplicable nostalgia for something that rationally should not be so important. This is because the energy exchange is not limited to the moment of the meeting. It creates a spiritual bond that can persist even when the relationship has already been in the past. So if each meeting transforms us, what are we absorbing and leaving to others? If energy has this power to influence our essence, are we being selective enough with whom we connect? And most importantly, what happens when these bonds become difficult to break? Many people believe that after an intimate encounter, everything ends there, as if it were just an episode without continuity. But the reality is quite different. The invisible ties formed in the energy exchange do not disappear with a simple goodbye. They remain, influencing thoughts, emotions and even future choices. Have you ever wondered why, even after a long time, certain people still surround your mind? This is because the energy connection does not break as easily as physical contact. And the effect of this can be surprising. Some people feel inexplicable nostalgia for someone with whom they have not had a deep bond on the surface, but who energetically left a difficult mark to erase. Others carry an emotional weight without understanding the origin, as they are dealing not only with their own emotions, but also with fragments of the soul of the other who remained impregnated. It's like trying to clean a mirror stained by something that shouldn't even be there anymore. The problem is that many of these connections persist without the person noticing. It is that X who is still present in some way, even without contact. That memory that appears out of nowhere, bringing sensations that seem displaced from the present. And sometimes this energy influence can affect even new relationships, creating unconscious blocks or repetitive patterns. Without proper energy protection and self-awareness, it is easy to fall into the trap of loading invisible packs without even knowing. So if every intimate exchange leaves such a deep impression, how can we avoid this fragmentation of the soul? How can we break free from these energy influences that no longer belong to us? The answer goes through something essential: the conscience about the danger of unconsciousness. Unconsciousness in intimacy can have hidden consequences that go far beyond what the eyes can see. When someone gets involved without reflection, without understanding the depth of energy exchange, a fertile field opens for the absorption of trauma and emotions that do not even belong to themselves. This is how many people begin to feel emotional confusion, loss of identity and even a restlessness they do not know how to explain. What seemed to be just a pleasant moment can actually be the beginning of a difficult emotional weight to carry. Have you noticed how some people change dramatically after certain relationships? Some flourish, while others seem to lose their vital energy, as if something had been drained from them. This is because intimacy creates spiritual bonds, and when this exchange happens unconsciously, there is the risk of bringing fragments of its own essence. Without realizing it, the person may be carrying an energy burden that should not be yours, simply because they connected with someone without proper energy protection. And the danger goes beyond momentary energy influence. When this exchange happens repeatedly, without conscience, the fragmentation of the soul intensifies, making the person more vulnerable, more susceptible to unconscious relationships and destructive cycles. Many carry pains that don't even know where they come from, simply because they have absorbed the energy of someone who is even more part of their lives. And so, without realizing it, they become prisoners from past connections, unable to completely break free. But if the impact of relationships can be so deep, is there a way to protect yourself? Is it possible to maintain the energy exchange without losing its own emotional balance? The answer is not to avoid intimacy, but to learn to consciously connect. After all, the emotional connection cannot be separated from the physical. Many try to believe that it is possible to live intimate encounters without emotional involvement, as if the body could act alone, without the soul and mind being affected. But this is a dangerous illusion. The human being is not just meat. Each touch, every look, each energy exchange strengthens an invisible bond, which can be as deep as it is lasting. The problem arises when this connection is ignored, leaving a trail of emotional confusion and soul fragmentation. Have you noticed how some intimate experiences leave marks that go beyond physical? One night may seem fleeting, but certain connections have an energy impact that resonates for a long time. Some people feel inexplicable nostalgia, others experience a sudden void without understanding the origin. This is because, even if you try to separate body and emotion, the energy exchange continues to happen, and its effect can be both positive and destructive. The idea of a purely physical relationship ignores the power of shared energy. When two people unite, they are not only pleasure, but also emotional states, unconscious cargo, and even energy influences that can alter their vibrational frequency. If the other person carries trauma, insecurities, or deep pain, part of it can be absorbed, directly impacting the emotional balance of those involved. So is it worth connecting without conscience? If the body, mind, and soul are interconnected, would it make no more sense to seek relationships that strengthen rather than fragment? The answer goes through an essential concept: learning to protect yourself energetically. Protecting one's energy does not mean avoiding intimacy, but learning to choose with those who share it. Each meeting carries a deep impact, and being aware of this is the first step in maintaining emotional balance. Just as we lock the door to avoid invaders, we must create energy filters to prevent anyone from having access to our essence. After all, if we would not give our secrets to a stranger, why would we give our energy without reflection? Energy protection can be cultivated in many ways. Before getting involved with someone, is it essential to observe, does this person convey peace or carry an evident emotional weight? After a date, how do you feel? Light and eager, or exhausted and drained? Energy does not lie, and ignoring the signs can lead to the absorption of trauma and negative influences. Techniques such as meditation, herbal baths, use of crystals such as black tourmaline, and even prayer can help restore vibration itself and dissolve invisible ties that are not good. Often the need for energy protection arises precisely because we neglect emotional connection. We believe we can get involved without hidden consequences, but the impact of relationships goes beyond what the eyes see. Being aware of what is changed and how this exchange affects us is an act of self-care. Energy is a valuable good, and not everyone deserves to have access to it. But if relationships affect our essence as much, and identify which connections strengthen us and which weaken us, the answer is in the way we feel after each meeting. Each person who goes through our lives leaves a mark, but some make scars deeper than we think. Relationships are not just casual encounters, they shape our energy, influence our emotional state, and can even change the course of our journey. Some connections strengthen us, bringing growth, lightness, and balance. Others, however, drain us, fragment us, and leave a difficult emotional weight to carry. Have you noticed how, after certain relationships, some people bloom and others seem to decline? This is because energy exchange is not neutral, it can be nutritious or toxic, depending on the vibration of those with us. When we connect with someone who carries deep trauma, insecurities, or negativity, we absorb part of this load without realizing it. Gradually, our own energy field adapts to this frequency, and the impact can be devastating. The problem is that this energy influence often happens subtly. A relationship may seem harmless at first, but over time, signs appear: excessive tiredness, emotional instability, confused thoughts, or even the feeling of being stuck with something that should have already been overcome. Exchanged energy remains active, even when the relationship ends, and without self-awareness, we can remain stuck to destructive patterns without understanding why. So, before you surrender to any relationship, is is this connection raising my energy or draining my essence? Am I becoming a better version of myself or getting lost in this bond? And most importantly, how to know, even before intimacy, if anyone deserves to be part of our essence. Few people stop to reflect before getting involved intimately, but this is one of the most important decisions when it comes to emotional balance and energy protection. Each connection leaves a trail, and the question that should be asked before any involvement is, does this person deserve to have access to my energy? Because, since this bond is formed, there is no way back without carrying part of this exchange. A good exercise before intimacy is to observe the subtle signs. How does this person deal with his own emotions? Is it transmitting peace or is always involved in chaos? How do you feel close to her? If someone's presence already has discomfort or instability even before physical contact, imagine the impact it may have after energy exchange. Often the emotional weight we carry comes precisely from the lack of this initial filter. Another essential point is to understand the impact of unconscious relationships. This is not just a momentary desire or chemistry, but an invisible pact that can influence our long-term thoughts and emotions. When someone gets involved without question, he runs the risk of absorbing alien trauma, carrying energy influences that he doesn't even realize. Lack of self-awareness in this process can result in relationships that weaken, rather than strengthening. So, before surrendering to a moment of pleasure, is it worth, am I doing this by conscious choice or lack? Will this exchange add to my energy or make me fragmented? Sex is not just a physical act, but an energy pact, an understanding that completely changes the way we connect. Sex is never just physical. In addition to momentary pleasure, there is a fusion of stories, emotions and vibrations that can transform us in ways we do not always realize immediately. Each intimate encounter is an invisible pact, an energy bond that forms among the people involved. And, contrary to popular belief, this connection does not end when physical contact ends, it can remain, influencing thoughts, feelings and even future choices. Have you ever wondered why some relationships seem difficult to overcome, even when rationally they no longer make sense? Many times this is because the energy exchange has not been closed. When two people connect intimately, their vibrational fields intertwine, and part of this energy can remain impregnated. If the other person carries trauma, fears, or imbalances, part of this load can be absorbed, resulting in confusing emotions, emotional weight, and even a feeling of soul fragmentation. Therefore, it is essential to be aware of who we allow to enter our energy field. Not every exchange strengthens, some weaken, drain, and make us more vulnerable to unconscious relationships. The body may say goodbye, but energy gets, and without proper protection it can influence our emotional balance much longer than we imagine. This is why some people feel a persistent energy influence, even after years without physical contact. If intimacy can transform us so deeply, then we need to learn to connect with more consciousness. But how to break these invisible pacts that have already been formed? How to clean the energy and regain balance after an exchange that left us marks? These answers can completely change the way we deal with our relationships. Now that you understand the invisible impact of intimacy, the question that remains is, what are you going to do with this knowledge? Will you continue to get involved without consciousness, allowing your energy to be fragmented and carrying trauma that is not yours? Or are you starting to choose more wisdom, protecting your essence and creating connections that really raise your vibration? The truth is that many people live stuck in invisible ties, without realizing how their emotions, their energy, and even their decisions are influenced by unconscious pacts of the past. If you feel inexplicable nostalgia, an emotional weight that does not know where it comes from, or difficulty breaking certain bonds, perhaps it is time to clean your energy and break free from these hidden influences. So, are you ready to take control of your own vibration? If this content has made sense to you, subscribe to the channel and enable notifications, because here you will continue to learn to protect your energy, strengthen your essence and transform your way of relating. And tell me here in the comments, have you ever felt the energy impact of a relationship on your skin? I want to know your experience.